Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are in the world. It is morning here in Southern California. Let's see that a little bit. Whew, busy weekend. Busy weekend. Hey, Pete, how's it going? We are going to have a giveaway of a copy of Naming Your Little Geek today. We'll find an appropriate time when we've got a bunch of people watching. Hey, everyone, Matt. Yes. Oh, it is hot already outside. So that's fun. But yeah, this weekend, oh my goodness. What did we do this weekend? So much. We had Homebuddies stream on Saturday. We did blood curdling, which was awesome. I got to play a very interesting character, not the type that I usually do, as a lot of people were mentioning in the chat at the time. I think they got a kick out of me doing a character who was kind of shitty, doing a lot of cursing and stuff like that. That was pretty fun. And then, of course, yesterday was Hellraiser Day. We had some tech issues, but movie was cool. I always like watching Hellraiser. I hadn't actually seen it in a while, so that was a nice rewatch. Hello, everybody. Yeah, so that was fun. And now we're off to a busy week. We've got Mythology Monday. We are starting Beowulf today. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Yeah, and then all the normal stuff going on this week. I think. Yes, probably. And then this coming Saturday night will be a Homebuddies group stream, and it will be my turn to host it. And I have an idea that I'm working on. I have to get some things and distribute some things, but it'll be the Homebuddies doing something that I am interested in. It will not be an ancient play like the last two, but it'll be something else that involves something near and dear to me. So it should be fun. Working on it. I don't want to talk too much because it's not all set up yet, and I don't know if it's necessarily all going to happen. No, it's not Dark Crystal. Stop it. Stop trying to make that a thing. Just like Fetch, that's not going to be a thing. What else? Anything else I need to talk about before we get started? I don't think so. All right. So, what is Beowulf? I assume all of you who are American viewers probably read this at some point in school. International viewers, I would guess that you may. I don't know. I don't know how far into the world people read Beowulf in school. If you're not in a primarily English-speaking country, who cares about such things. So definitely let me know in chat. Tell me, have you ever read Beowulf, and was it in school? And if you can remember, I certainly can't. At what general age or level of school it was? Because I know I read it. No one's reading it outside. Okay, that makes sense. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I read Beowulf in, I want to say something like junior high for the first time, and then several times since then, of course. 7th grade. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, junior high. Okay, cool. Beowulf it's an epic poem. So like Homer, like the Argonautica, like other things. So it's a long story. It has epithets. It has repeated phrases for things, descriptors, and that kind of thing. Apparently, it is 3,182 alliterative lines. So if we do end up reading the whole thing out loud, it's gonna take a while. So we'll see how that goes. We might end up skipping back and forth a little bit. We'll see. It is Old English, and it comes to us, which is really interesting. There's one manuscript that had this story in it. And it wasn't even like the manuscript of Beowulf. It was just a long manuscript of a bunch of other things, and the Beowulf poem was just right in the middle of it, which is crazy. Again, like if you think about how many great works of epic poetry and stories, were there in the ancient world that just never got written down, in later times, or were written down but then were lost to the ages or destroyed, or who knows. But anyway, we have one source for Beowulf. Beowulf, the manuscript was written right around 1000 AD. Of course, the story is older than that, but we don't really know exactly how old it is. And it talks about, it's set in Scandinavia in the 6th century. So we're talking a few hundred years before. And yeah, I don't know. If we have any other questions, we can look it up. But that's all just easily obtained information. Ernest, you've never read it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, it's not required that anyone has read it before. Essentially, it tells the story of a great hero named Beowulf fighting monsters. That's pretty much the gist of it. The translation I have here is one of a couple of copies that my wife and I have from God knows when. We just sort of collected them. This one in particular was published in 1963, so not too old, but not exactly modern or current. Translated and with an introduction by Burton Raffel. I have no idea who that is, but it's what we got, so we'll read from this one. The book is divided up into, or at least this translation is divided up into sections that are usually pretty short, so that's cool that we can just sort of do them and finish them. Oh, Pandar, you're Burton Raffel. Okay, good. And there's a brief prologue to it. Hello, everyone. Oh, and let's see. Hold on. There's some stuff in the back I didn't even notice. Oh, some genealogies. I love that. The Danes, the Swedes, and the Geats. And then we have a glossary of names. That could come in handy. Brecca. Okay, cool. So we've got a couple of extra appendices. Yes, we will hear about Grendel. And yeah, there was a movie. A CGI movie for some reason. I don't know. It was a thing. Everything had to be CGI. Read a few books about Beowulf, but never read the book itself. Okay, cool. So yeah, so we'll just jump right in and we'll see how it goes. And like I said, if it's not interesting to read the whole thing, then maybe I'll look up and figure out which books are skippable, or which chapters rather. All right, so without further ado, and let me know if you have questions. Again, the chapters are very short, so we can easily read a chapter and then talk about stuff that came up. Beowulf, prologue. Hear me. We've heard of Danish heroes, ancient kings, and the glory they cut for themselves, swinging mighty swords. How Scyld made slaves of soldiers from every land, crowds of captives he'd beaten into terror. He'd traveled to Denmark alone, an abandoned child, but changed his own fate, lived to be rich and much honored. He ruled lands on all sides. Wherever the sea would take them, his soldiers sailed, returned with tribute and obedience. There was a brave king, and he gave them more than his glory, conceived a son for the Danes, a new leader, allowed them by the grace of God. They had lived before his coming, kingless and miserable. Now the Lord of all life, ruler of glory, blessed them with a prince, Beo, whose power and fame soon spread through the world. Scyld's strong son was the glory of Denmark. His father's warriors were wound round his heart with golden rings, bound to their prince by his father's treasure. So young men build the future, wisely open-handed in peace, protected in war. So warriors earn their fame, and wealth is shaped with a sword. When his time was come, the old king died, still strong, but called to the Lord's hands. His comrades carried him down to the shore, bore him as their leader had asked, their lord and companion, while words could move on his tongue. Schild's reign had been long. He'd ruled them well. There in the harbor was a ring-proud fighting ship, its timbers icy, waiting, and there they brought the beloved body of their ring-giving lord, and laid him near the mast. Next to that noble corpse they heaped up treasures, jeweled helmets, hooked swords and coats of mail, armor carried from the ends of the earth. No ship had ever sailed so brightly fitted. No king sent forth more deeply mourned. Forced to set him adrift, floating as far as the tide might run, they refused to give him less from their hoards of gold than those who'd shipped him away, an orphan and a beggar to cross the waves alone. High up over his head they flew his shining banner, then sadly let the water pull at the ship, watched it slowly sliding to where neither rulers, nor heroes, nor anyone can say whose hands opened to take that motionless cargo. Ooh. All right, so that is the prologue. So we get a little bit of a sense of, it's a little bit of world building, right? We've got Danish heroes, but now we're talking about sort of an origin of them, and this guy Schild, and then Prince Bio, and how they're going to be really good for Denmark. A couple of interesting little notes in there. What did I notice that I wanted to talk about? We've got rings, so talking about rings that they would wear on their arms. And then one thing that's kind of cool is, so when they're obviously this ruler died, they're gonna push him away on a ship as a funeral service, and they heap it up with all sorts of treasure. And there are jeweled helmets, which is always interesting to think of protective gear that's really finely detailed and expensive rather than just, useful and functional. And then it really interesting, hooked swords. And you don't think of sort of northern and Germanic people as having any sort of curved or hooked swords. So I don't know exactly what that's referring to. I will look it up though. Yeah. And then they push him away. Yes, Beowulf is an epic poem. So again, depending on the translation, it may or may not be in meter or forced into rhymes, because again, we're translated into different languages. So it has all of the sort of the aspects of epic poetry. It's going to be about heroes, less so about gods than some other ones. It's going to have epithets, so we'll hear, so-and-so, the mighty, that will be repeated. We'll have things like that. We'll have lists. Yeah. All right. That was the prologue. So this is chapter 1, chapter the first. Then Bio was king in that Danish castle, Schild's son, ruling as long as his father, and as loved, a famous lord of men. And he in turn gave his people a son, the great Healfdene, a fierce fighter who led the Danes to the end of his long life and left them 4 children, 3 princes to guide them in battle, Hergar and Hrothgar and Halga the Good, and 1 daughter, Yurs, who was given to Onela, king of the Swedes, and became his wife and their queen. Then Hrothgar, taking the throne, led the Danes to such glory that comrades and kinsmen swore by his sword, and young men swelled his armies, and he thought of greatness and resolved to build a hall that would hold his mighty band and reach higher toward heaven than anything that had ever been known to the sons of men. And in that hall he'd divide the spoils of their victories, to old and young what they'd earned in battle, but leaving the common pastures untouched and taking no lives. The work was ordered, the timbers tied and shaped by the hosts that Hrothgar ruled. It was quickly ready, that most beautiful of dwellings, built as he'd wanted, and then he whose word was obeyed all over the earth named it Herot. His boast come true, he commanded a banquet, opened out his treasure-full hands, that towering place, gabled and huge, stood waiting for time to pass, for war to begin, for flames to leap as high as the feud that would light them, and for Herot to burn. A powerful monster living down in the darkness growled in pain, impatient as day after day the music rang loud in that hall, the harp's rejoicing call and the poet's clear songs, sung of the ancient beginnings of us all, recalling the Almighty making the earth, shaping these beautiful plains marked off by oceans, then proudly setting the sun and moon to glow across the land and light it. The corners of the earth were made lovely with trees and leaves made quick with life, with each of the nations who now move on its face. And then, as now warriors sang of their pleasure, so Hrothgar's men lived happily in the hall, till the monster stirred, that demon, that fiend, Grendel, who haunted the moors, the wild marshes, and made his home in a hell, not hell but earth. He was spawned in that slime, conceived by a pair of those monsters born of Cain, murderous creatures banished by God, punished forever for the crime of Abel's death. The Almighty drove those demons out, and their exile was bitter. Shut away from men, they split into 1,000 forms of evil, spirits and fiends, goblins, monsters, giants, a brood forever opposing the Lord's will, and again defeated. All right, so that was chapter 1. So we've got so it was Scyld, then Beo had 4 kids, one of them Hrothgar. Hrothgar is a great king in Denmark, and he decides he wants to build a really cool hall for people to come, and he's going to divide up the spoils of his victories to his warriors there, and he allots them by how much they participated and what their accomplishments were, which is interesting. And it is called Herot. But they're so loud when they rejoice in that hall that it disturbs a monster. The monster Grendel, who lives nearby in the marshes and the moors. And we hear that Grendel, the creature, is descended from Cain. So again, this story has Christian elements. So we saw a little bit of that in Snorri Sturluson, because Snorri himself was Christian and applied some Christian overlay to the prose Edda. Yes, from Cain and Abel. So here the idea is that Cain and Cain's people turned into a multitude of monsters out in the world to plague the rest of good humankind. Okay. But Grendel hasn't done anything yet. He's just annoyed in the marshes because he hears all the singing and rejoicing. All right, chapter 2. Then, when darkness had dropped, Grendel went up to Herot, wondering what the warriors would do in that hall when their drinking was done. He found them sprawled in sleep, suspecting nothing, their dreams undisturbed. The monster's thoughts were as quick as his greed or his claws. He slipped through the door, and there in silence snatched up 30 men, smashed them unknowing in their beds, and ran out with their bodies, the blood dripping behind him, back to his lair, delighted with his night's slaughter. At daybreak, with the sun's first light, they saw how well he had worked, and in that gray morning broke their long feast with tears and laments for the dead. Hrothgar, their lord, sat joyless in Herot, a mighty prince mourning the fate of his lost friends and companions. Knowing by its tracks that some demon had torn his followers apart, he wept, fearing the beginning might not be the end. And that night Grendel came again, so set on murder that no crime could ever be enough, no savage assault quench his lust for evil. Then each warrior tried to escape him, searched for rest in different beds, as far from Herot as they could find, seeing how Grendel hunted when they slept. Distance was safety. The only survivors were those who fled him. Hate had triumphed. So Grendel ruled, fought with the righteous, won against many, and won. So Herot stood empty and stayed deserted for years. 12 winters of grief for Hrothgar, king of the Danes, sorrow heaped at his door by hell-forged hands. His misery leaped the seas, was told and sung in all men's ears, how Grendel's hatred began, how the monster relished his savage war on the Danes, keeping the bloody feud alive, seeking no peace, offering no truce, accepting no settlement, no price in gold or land, and paying the living for one crime only with another. No one waited for reparation from his plundering claws. That shadow of death hunted in the darkness, stalked Hrothgar's warriors, old and young, lying in waiting, hidden in mist, invisibly following them from the edge of the marsh, always there, unseen. So mankind's enemy continued his crimes, killing as often as he could, coming alone, bloodthirsty and horrible. Though he lived in Heorot when the night hid him, he never dared to touch King Hrothgar's glorious throne, protected by God, God whose love Grendel could not know. But Hrothgar's heart was bent. The best and most noble of his council debated remedies, sat in secret sessions, talking of terror and wondering what the bravest of warriors could do. And sometimes they sacrificed to the old stone gods, made heathen vows, hoping for hell's support, the devil's guidance in driving their affliction off. That was their way, and the heathen's only hope, hell always in their hearts, knowing neither God nor his passing as he walks through our world, the Lord of heaven and earth. Their ears could not hear his praise nor know his glory. Let them beware those who are thrust into danger, clutched at by trouble, yet can carry no solace in their hearts, cannot hope to be better. Hail to those who will rise to God, drop off their dead bodies, and seek our Father's peace. End of chapter 2. So again, we definitely get the Christian aspect there at the end. Yeah, I mean, talking about Cain and Abel and stories from the Bible. That's a whole other discussion for another day. So that's an interesting chapter. So first of all, we get Grendel, right? Now, no real description of what Grendel is. Hello, welcome new people who are just coming in. David White turns prior. Hello, everybody. So all we know is that Grendel comes at night, enters Heorot, the hall, and just smashes people to bits. He is killing them 30 at a time. He drags them back out with him. Blood is just in a path, a trail of blood, literally. It's bad. Nobody can do anything. All they can do is flee and go and sleep somewhere else. And we get, not only just at the end is very explicit of that chapter, but earlier is they're really pushing the Christianity aspect, right? So we're hearing that it's described as crimes and hate that's triumphing, not just like a monster's killing people. There's definitely they're adding a moral aspect to it, which is interesting because if Grendel is a monster and not human, then what morality is he or it supposed to have? Kind of an interesting conversation there. It's 12 years that this has been going on, that Grendel has been murdering people in the hall. And and then like I said, obviously at the end it gets like very much Christian, talking about how the people, they were so desperate they started worshiping again the old gods, and how that makes them evil, devil worshipping heathens. And so it goes. Demon Blight, we were all trying to remember, well, those of us who are American and possibly British, when exactly did we read this in school? I was pretty sure it was junior high. All right, so things are not going well for King Hrothgar. 12 years of Grendel coming every night and attacking. All right, so now chapter 3. So the living sorrow of Healfdane's son simmered, bitter and fresh, and no wisdom or strength could break it. That agony hung on king and people alike, harsh and unending, violent and cruel and evil. In his far-off home, Beowulf, Higlac's follower and the strongest of the Geats, greater and stronger than anyone anywhere in this world, heard how Grendel filled knights with horror, and quickly commanded a boat fitted out, proclaiming that he'd go to that famous king, would sail across the sea to Hrothgar, now when help was needed. None of the wise ones regretted his going, much as he was loved by the Geats. The omens were good, and they urged the adventure on. So Beowulf chose the mightiest men he could find, the bravest and best of the Geats, 14 in all, and led them down to their boat. He knew the sea, would point the prow straight to that distant Danish shore. Then they sailed, set their ship out on the waves under the cliffs. Ready for what came, they wound through the currents, the seas beating at the sand, and were borne in the lap of their shining ship, lined with gleaming armor, going safely in that oak-hard boat to where their hearts took them. The wind hurried them over the waves. The ship foamed through the sea like a bird, until, in the time they had known it would take, standing in the round curled prow, they could see sparkling hills, high and green, jutting over the shore, and rejoicing in those rock-steep cliffs, they quietly ended their voyage. Jumping to the ground, the Geats pushed their boat to the sand and tied it in place, mail shirts and armor rattling as they swiftly moored their ship. And then they gave thanks to God for their easy crossing. High on a wall, a Danish watcher patrolling along the cliffs saw the travelers crossing to the shore, their shields raised and shining. He came riding down, Hrothgar's lieutenant, spurring his horse, needing to know why they'd landed, these men in armor. Shaking his heavy spear in their faces, he spoke. "Whose soldiers are you, you who've been carried in your deep-keeled ship across the sea road to this country of mine? Listen, I've stood on these cliffs longer than you know, keeping our coast free of pirates, raiders sneaking ashore from their ships, seeking our lives and our gold. None have ever come more openly, and yet you've offered no password, no sign from my prince, no permission from my people for your landing. Here, nor have I ever seen, out of all the men on earth, one greater than has come with you. No commoner carries such weapons, unless his appearance and his beauty are both lies. You, tell me your name and your father's. No spies go further into Danish soil than you've come already. Strangers, from whatever it was you've sailed, tell it, and tell it quickly. The quicker the better, I say, for us all. Speak, say exactly who you are, and from where, and why." End of chapter 3. Beowulf. Yes, so far off among the Geats. And the Geats, where exactly did the Geats live? In Geatland, of course. The Geats were Old Norse, sometimes called Goths, North Germanic tribe who inhabited modern southern Sweden. Okay. They are one of the progenitor groups of modern Swedes, along with Swedes and Goots. Geats, Goots, Swedes, all that good stuff. Gotaland. So way off in Sweden, among the Geats, is the great warrior Beowulf. Yes, they liked eyeshadow, wearing all black, shopping in Hot Topic. Beowulf hears of what's going on, gathers his warriors, gets a nice, good ship. Interesting that the sailing is super easy, barely an inconvenience. They get there the voyage took exactly as long as they anticipated it would take, which is kind of cool. And of course, they get there, and the first thing they do is they thank God for the safe and easy journey. And again, if you've been paying attention to almost every Mythology Monday when I've talked, again, ancient people were so afraid of the ocean, so thankful as soon as they landed from any sort of mission that had to cross an open sea, even a relatively short one. Yeah, it was a big deal. And then, of course, this dude, this Danish sentry, essentially, sees them land and accosts them with his heavy spear shaken in their faces and says, "Who are you? Where have you come from? What's your deal? Why are you here?" Definitely wizards involved in this. All right, chapter 4. Their leader answered him, Beowulf, unlocking words from deep in his breast. We are Geats, men who follow Hygelac. My father was a famous soldier, known far and wide as a leader of men. His name was Edgitho. His wife, wow. I'm going to start that one again. His name was Edgitho. His life lasted many winters. Wise men all over the earth surely remember him still. And we have come seeking your prince, Healfdane's son, protector of this people, only in friendship. Instruct us, watchman, help us with your words. Our errand is a great one. Our business with the glorious king of the Danes no secret. There's nothing dark or hidden in our coming. You know, if we've heard the truth and been told honestly, that your country is cursed with some strange, vicious creature that hunts only at night and that no one has seen. It's said, watchman, that he has slaughtered your people, brought terror to the darkness. Perhaps Hrothgar can hunt, here in my heart, for some way to drive this devil out, if anything will ever end the evils afflicting your wise and famous lord. Here he can cool his burning sorrow, or else he may see his suffering go on forever, for as long as Heorot towers high on your hills. The mounted officer answered him bluntly, the brave watchman. A soldier should know the difference between words and deeds, and keep that knowledge clear in his brain. I believe your words. I trust in your friendship. Go forward, weapons and armor and all, on into Denmark. I'll guide you myself, and my men will guard your ship. Keep it safe here on our shores, your fresh-tarred boat. Watch it well, until that curving prow carries across the sea to Geatland, a chosen warrior who bravely does battle with the creatures haunting our people, who survives that horror unhurt and goes home bearing our love. Then they moved on. Their boat lay moored, tied tight to its anchor. Glittering at the top of their golden helmets, wild boar heads gleamed, shining decorations, swinging as they marched, erect like guards, like sentinels, as though ready to fight. They marched, Beowulf and his men and their guide, until they could see the gables of Heorot, covered with hammered gold and glowing in the sun, that most famous of all dwellings, towering majestic, its glittering roofs visible far across the land. Their guide reined in his horse, pointing to that hall, built by Hrothgar for the best and bravest of his men. The path was plain, they could see their way. And then he spoke. Now I must leave you. May the Lord our God protect your coming and going. The sea is my job, keeping these coasts free of invaders, bands of pirates. I must go back. Yeah, sorry about that at the beginning. The line was, his life lasted many winters, but my mind saw the W and turned life into wife. And did that over and over again. Thank you for the follow, Viker Clar. It's a cool name. Okay, so what did we learn in that brief chapter? So Beowulf gives his a mini genealogy, talks about why he's there, and says basically, look, we're wide open here. We've come to help. We've heard the stories. Possibly we can help out, help your king, help your people. So lead on. And the watchman says, I believe you. You guys with all of your armor and weapons, come on in, let's go. We'll watch your ship, we'll take care of things. Don't even worry about it. And he leads them to Heorot. And I like how they're walking and they see the hall, and even so the watchman's like, yeah, that's it. That's it right there. It's like the big one with the gold on the top. I mean, we've heard already that this hall is like the greatest, dwelling ever built. Magnificent. You can see it for miles. And the guy's like, yep, that's it right there. That's the one. You want to go right there. But then the watchman says, but I got to go back to the ocean because that's my job, to watch the ocean. So you guys go on ahead. Chapter 5. The path he'd shown them was paved, cobbled like a Roman road. They arrived with their mail shirts glittering, silver shining links clanking an iron song as they came. Sea-weary still, they held their broad, battle-hardened shields in rows along the wall, then stretched themselves on Heorot's benches. Their armor rang, their ash-wood spears stood in a line, gray-tipped and straight. The Geats' war gear were honed and honored weapons. A Danish warrior asked who they were, their names and their fathers. "Where have you carried these gold-carved shields from, these silvery shirts and helmets, and those spears set out in long lines? I am Hrothgar's herald and captain. Strangers have come here before, but never so freely, so bold, and you come too proudly to be exiles. Not poverty, but your heart's high courage has brought you to Hrothgar." He was answered by a famous soldier, the Geats' proud prince. "We follow Hygelac, break bread at his side. I am Beowulf. My errand is for Healfdane's great son to hear, your glorious lord. If he chooses to receive us, we will greet him, salute the chief of the Danes, and speak out our message." Wulfgar replied, a prince born to the Swedes, famous for both strength and wisdom. "Our warm-hearted lord will be told of your coming. I shall tell our king, our giver of bright rings, and hurry back with his word and speak it here, however he answers your request." He went quickly to where Hrothgar sat, gray and old, in the middle of his men, and knowing the custom of that court, walked straight to the king's great chair, stood waiting to be heard, then spoke. "There are Geats who have come sailing the open ocean to our land, come far over the high waves, led by a warrior called Beowulf. They wait on your word, bring messages for your ears alone. My lord, grant them a gracious answer. See them and hear what they've come for. Their weapons and armor are nobly worked. These men are no beggars. And Beowulf, their prince, who showed them the way to our shores, is a mighty warrior, powerful and wise." So they're taking a lot of risks letting these people in, but what are they going to do? They're in pretty bad straits. Very interesting, at the beginning of that chapter, they talk about the road leading up to the hall is paved and cobbled like a Roman road. So remember, we're dealing with 6th century, a story that takes place in the 6th century, written down, or at least the manuscript comes from around 1000 AD. So, just generally thinking of the timeline. No pain, no gain. That's true. That is true. The Geats show up. Interestingly enough, they're tired. They are mighty warriors, but they're tired from their sea journey. So they put down all their stuff and lay down on the benches. They arrange their shields. They put their spears up against the wall, which also is kind of a cool image so that the people there can see all of this magnificent war equipment they brought. And we also introduced Wulfgar, right? He's the herald and captain of Hrothgar, so another local hero. And we're going to get some more talking. Talking. All right, so now the response from Hrothgar. The Danes' high prince and protector answered, "I knew Beowulf as a boy. His father was Edgitho, who was given Hrethel's one daughter. Hrethel, Hygelac's father. Now Edgitho's brave son is here, come visiting a friendly king. And I've heard that when seamen came, bringing their gifts and presents to the Geats, they wrestled and ran together, and Hygelac's young prince showed them a mighty battle grip, hands that moved with 30 men's strength and courage to match. Our holy father has sent him as a sign of his grace, a mark of his favor, to help us defeat Grendel and end that terror. I shall greet him with treasures, gifts to reward his courage in coming to us. Quickly, order them all to come to me, together Beowulf and his band of Geats, and tell them too how welcome we will make them." Then Wulfgar went to the door and addressed the waiting seafarers with soldiers' words. My lord, the great king of the Danes commands me to tell you that he knows of your noble birth, and that having come to him from over the open sea, you have come bravely and are welcome. Now go to him as you are, in your armor and helmets, but leave your battle shields here and your spears. Let them lie waiting for the promises your words may make. Beowulf arose, and with his men around him, ordering a few to remain with their weapons, leading the others quickly along under Heorot's steep roof into Hrothgar's presence. Standing on that prince's own hearth, helmeted, the silvery metal of his mail shirt gleaming with a smith's high art, he greeted the Danes' great lord. Hail, Hrothgar! Hygelac is my cousin and my king. The days of my youth have been filled with glory. Now Grendel's name has echoed in our land. Sailors have brought us tales of Heorot, the best of all mead halls, deserted and useless when the moon hangs in the skies the sun had lit. Light and life fleeing together. My people have said, the wisest, most knowing, and best of them, that my duty was to go to the Danes' great king. They have seen my strength for themselves, have watched me rise from the darkness of war, dripping with my enemy's blood. I drove 5 great giants into chains, chased all of that race from the earth. I swam in the blackness of night, hunting monsters out of the ocean, and killing them one by one. Death was my errand, and the fate they had earned. Now Grendel and I are called together, and I've come. Grant me then, Lord and Protector of this noble place, a single request. I have come so far, O shelter of warriors, and your people's beloved friend, that this one favor you should not refuse me, that I, alone, and with the help of my men, may purge all evil from this hall. I have heard, too, that the monster's scorn of men is so great that he needs no weapons and fears none. Nor will I. My lord Hygelac might think less of me if I let my sword go where my feet were afraid to, if I hid behind some broad linden shield. My hands alone shall fight for me, struggle for life against the monster. God must decide who will be given to death's cold grip. Grendel's plan, I think, will be what it has been before, to invade this hall and gorge his belly with our bodies. If he can. And I think if my time will have come, there'll be nothing to mourn over, no corpse to prepare for its grave. Grendel will carry our bloody flesh to the moors, crunch on our bones, and smear torn scraps of our skin on the walls of his den. No, I expect no Danes will fret about sewing our shrouds if he wins. And if death does take me, send the hammered mail of my armor to Hygelac, return the inheritance I had from Hrethel, and be from Wayland. Fate will unwind as it must. End of chapter 6. So we get the words of 2 mighty leaders. We have Hrothgar, who knows exactly who Beowulf is. I know your family. I've heard of all that stuff. It's great. What you doing here? And then Beowulf talks about how he heard what was going on, and he's come to fight, to kill Grendel. He tells a little bit about his history fighting monsters and fighting creatures. In a couple of ways, he describes himself similarly to how Grendel has been described, right? They've seen my strength for themselves, have watched me rise from the darkness of war, dripping with my enemy's blood. So again, sort of very similar to how Grendel was described, coming in darkness, dripping the blood of the people that he's killed. And yes, and he says, I will fight. I'll fight with my bare hands even. And yeah, we do have a lot of monsters, but a lot of references to God and how God is in control of things. But we've already heard that at least a lot of the monsters are actually descendants of Cain, and that created creatures and goblins and monsters out there in the world. I don't know offhand if all of the monsters are descendants of Cain or not. Because again, we hear that Beowulf has already hunted and killed other monsters and giants. So I don't know if those are from the same lineage as Grendel or not. Maybe we'll find out. All right, chapter 7. Everybody following along? Any questions? Any thoughts, concerns, ideas? Chapter 7. Hrothgar replied, protector of the Danes, Beowulf, you've come to us in friendship, and because of the reception your father found at our court. Edgitho had begun a bitter feud, killing Hathlaf, a Wolfing warrior. Your father's countrymen were afraid of war if he returned to his home, and they turned him away. Then he traveled across the curving waves to the land of the Danes. I was new to the throne then, a young man ruling this wide kingdom and its golden city. Hergar, my older brother, a far better man than I, had died, and dying made me second among Healfdane's sons, first in this nation. I bought the end of Edgitho's quarrel, sent ancient treasures through the ocean's furrows to the Wolflands. Your father swore he'd keep that peace. My tongue grows heavy, and my heart, when I try to tell you what Grendel has brought us, the damage he's done here in this hall. You see for yourself how much smaller our ranks have become, and can guess what we've lost to his terror. Surely the Lord Almighty could stop his madness, smother his lust? How many times have my men, glowing with courage, drawn from too many cups of ale, sworn to stay after dark and stem that horror with a sweep of their swords? And then, in the morning, this mead hall glittering with new light would be drenched with blood, the benches stained red, the floors all wet from that fiend's savage assault, and my soldiers would be fewer still, death taking more and more. But to table, Beowulf, a banquet in your honor. Let us toast your victories and talk of the future. Then Hrothgar's men gave places to the Geats, yielded benches to the brave visitors, and led them to the feast. The keepers of the mead came carrying out the carved flasks, and poured that bright sweetness. A poet sang, from time to time, in a clear, pure voice. Danes and visiting Geats, celebrated as one, drank and rejoiced. Hey, everybody. Yes, this will all be on the test. So many tests. So we hear from Hrothgar again, and he is very sad. He gives a little bit of a genealogy about how Beowulf's father, right? Edgitho? I'm just looking up the... Yeah. Beowulf's father, Edgitho, there was a bit of a vendetta going on, and he had fled. He had come to there at a previous generation, and they had paid off the wounded party. So anyway, there was peace made, so that's why they do know of Beowulf and his family. But then poor Hrothgar talks about how terrible it is living under the threat of Grendel. Grendel comes and murders his people. Again, we hear repeatedly that there's just blood spray everywhere. It's like an Evil Dead movie. It's blood everywhere. It's horrible. Can you please help us? Please help us. You're our only hope. And then they drink. Drink. And even Hrothgar's men, he talks about, where they had lots of courage to fight Grendel, mostly from drinking. So, yes, a lot of drinking going on. Okay, chapter 8. Unferth spoke, Ekelglaf's son, who sat at Hrothgar's feet, spoke harshly and sharp, vexed by Beowulf's adventure, by their visitors' courage, and angry that anyone in Denmark or anywhere on earth had ever acquired glory and fame greater than his own. You're Beowulf, are you? The same boastful fool who fought a swimming match with Brecca? Both of you daring and young and proud? Exploring the deepest seas, risking your lives for no reason but the danger? All older and wiser heads warned you not to, but no one could check such pride. With Brecca at your side, you swam along the sea paths, your swift-moving hands pulling you over the ocean's face. Then winter churned through the water, the waves ran you as they willed, and you struggled 7 long nights to survive. And at the end, victory was his, not yours. The sea carried him close to his home, to southern Norway, near the land of the Brondins, where he ruled and was loved, where his treasure was piled and his strength protected his towns and his people. He'd promised to outswim you. Bonston's son made that boast ring true. You've been lucky in your battles, Beowulf, but I think your luck may change if you challenge Grendel, staying a whole night through in this hall, waiting where that fiercest of demons can find you. Beowulf answered, Edgitho's great son, Ah, Unferth, my friend, your face is hot with ale, and your tongue has tried to tell us about Brecca's doings. But the truth is simple. No man swims in the sea as I can. No strength is a match for mine. As boys, Brecca and I had boasted. We were both too young to know better, that we'd risk our lives far out at sea, and so we did. Each of us carried a naked sword, prepared for whales or the swift sharp teeth and beaks of needlefish. He could never leave me behind, swim faster across the waves than I could, and I had chosen to remain close to his side. I remained near him for 5 long nights, until a flood swept us apart. The frozen sea surged around me. It grew dark. The wind turned bitter, blowing from the north, and the waves were savage. Creatures who sleep deep in the sea were stirred into life, and the iron-hammered links of my mail shirt, these shining bits of metal woven across my breast, saved me from death. A monster seized me, drew me swiftly to the bottom, swimming with its claws tight in my flesh. But fate let me find its heart with my sword, hack myself free. I fought that beast's last battle, left it floating lifeless in the sea. Okay, so not all is happy and well in the Hall of Herot. There's this jerkbag named Unferth, who sits at Hrothgar's feet, so somebody else who is hanging out in the hall, and he's uppity. He says, Beowulf, what are you doing here? What are you gonna do? You're not so great. I heard this story about you doing a swimming contest one time with this cool dude named Brecca, and you lost. You guys swam for a long time, but he won. It was his strength who held out. You're not a big deal. You're not that great. Grendel will take care of you. And Beowulf says, Ha ha, you're drunk. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. Let me tell you the truth of our swimming contest. And then goes on this crazy story about how he and Brecca went on this crazy swim. And he talks about the swimming and how long it took. And then as he goes on the story, it just gets crazier and crazier. Number one, they had swords with them to fight off sea monsters, to fight off whales and fish. Okay. And then they're swimming. They swim for 5 days until they get separated. And then we find out that they're also wearing armor as they swim. And then a gigantic monster comes, grabs Beowulf, drags him toward the bottom of the ocean, and Beowulf has to hack it to bits and kills it. Pretty epic, I would say. I was a Boy Scout. I did a lot of swimming. I did all the things. I was just telling Benjamin about it, actually. All the stuff where you have to jump in the water and swim fully clothed, and then take off your clothing in the water and make a life preserver out of your pants and do all that kind of stuff. It's tough to swim in clothing, let alone armor. Yeah, that's not an easy feat. Just the weight, the encumbrance, and all that. And he's fighting monsters in the ocean. Now, some of this is foreshadowing. or I don't know, you might say a theme, elements that are going to show up again in the epic poem. If you have not read it and don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so we're getting stories of Beowulf's greatness even while people are sort of impugning his heroism and his abilities. Terrence, you don't know how to swim. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, obviously for people who don't grow up in or around water, there's certainly people out there. My son, Benjamin, unfortunately, still does not know how to swim. He'll be turning 6. And I consider it a personal failing that we have not taught him how to swim, but we don't have a pool. And last year we did find a good public pool that we went to a couple of times. And I started to teach him, but then we just ran out of time. I was very lucky growing up with a pool, so I was taught how to swim very early. I love swimming. Don't get to do it super often, but I do enjoy it. Pete, are you still around in the chat? Pete, are you there? Pete, are you there? Pete, are you there? Is Pete here watching? I don't know. Yes, Pete is there. Pete, can you do me a favor and do a quick giveaway? Let's give away a copy of Naming Your Little Geek, courtesy of Cyber Spectre. Wanted to have a giveaway, which is awesome. Cyber Spectre bought a copy so that I could give it away. I will sign it and I will give it away. Hello, Hudsonizer. Have you listened to Folklore? We talk mythology and folklore here every Monday. Are you talking about something specific or just in general? But yes, Pete will tell you how to enter for a giveaway. I will sign the book. I'll put your name in it if you would like. So that is the first. Interesting. Folklore, the Taylor Swift album. Type Beowulf. Keyword Beowulf with that specific spelling. There are lots of different spellings of lots of the names and things in this book. You will not be graded on spelling for the test. So yeah, that's the first 8 chapters. We've done almost 560 lines. So what did we say? This poem is 3,000 lines. So then if we can do... And we didn't start right away. So let's see. What's the math on that? Assuming we can do about 600 lines per time, that would be 5 episodes. Okay, that's not so bad. What do we think? Beowulf is lame. I don't know. Beowulf is fairly exciting. Canterbury Tales are good too. All good. So yes, I'm enjoying Bay. Like Bay. Who is Bay? It's good. So yes, type in Beowulf, that specific spelling, to be entered to win a copy of Naming Your Little Geek. Signed, shipped directly to you. Oh, it's so Bay. Yeah, so obviously we've gotten a lot of imagery about battle. We've heard of how awful Grendel is, and we will soon be seeing them come to blows. Sorry, Ribaldi, but we will continue. Not a lot has happened so far. Grendel has mutilated and murdered a bunch of people, and Beowulf has come, so he's there at Herot. Talked to Hrothgar, listed his accomplishments, defended himself against some scurrilous lies about him losing some swimming contest. Garbage. But yeah, we have not delved into the actual action just yet, but it is coming up. We're also, I should say, we're not even done with the story of the swimming contest. It continues into the next chapter because there's so much there to talk about this weird swimming thing. But again, it is important for later on because I'll say there will be more swimming happening in the book. Yeah, definitely let people jump in. That Beowulf movie with 13th Warrior. So 13th Warrior, has anybody seen that movie other than Uberbaldi? 13th Warrior is a cool movie. I'm not going to say it's a great movie. There's some... Man, if you watch that movie and like really pay attention to stuff, You may notice, but there were lots of issues in the production of that movie. It's based on a Michael Crichton book, right? Michael Crichton, called Eaters of the Dead. Very, very interesting book. Eaters, right? Eaters of the Dead. That's a Magic the Gathering thing? What? I don't want that. Crichton. Okay. Yeah, the book is cool. It's about this, like, anyway, it's a cool book adapted into the movie 13th Warrior. I have a deep love for that movie. It's not a fantastic movie. It's definitely enjoyable, but yeah, read the book. It's a short one, and it's a fictional accounting of an ancient adventure tale. Yeah, similar to Beowulf. Yeah, some cool stuff. Great actors in 13th Warrior too. Good stuff. And again, I've talked about this before, but I'm currently watching the show Vikings from the History Channel. I'm almost done with season 1, and I love it. I'm having such a good time with this show. It ties in. I mean, it's the perfect time to watch it, right? We just did Norse mythology with Snorri Sturluson. Beowulf has similarities to it. It's great. I'm absolutely loving that show. If you haven't watched it, like me, you're coming into it years late. Check it out. I don't know. I've heard that at some point it gets to be very repetitious. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm almost done with season 1, and I'm having a great time with it. So yes, check that out. Yeah, but check out 13th Warrior. It's a, like I said, it's a cool movie, but it's not a perfect movie. Yeah, Demon Blight. It's funny with Vikings. Like I knew it existed, but I never cared enough to check it out. And then I was on a plane. I was coming back from either Gen Con a few years ago or Toy Fair maybe. And I was just flipping through the stuff on the plane just to have something on, and it was and there was an episode of Vikings on. I have no idea what season it was, but I was bored. I had nothing else to do, so I watched a little bit of it. And yeah, Floki was a big part of the episode that I watched, and I was like, this looks really interesting. So then I put it on my list of things to watch, and then of course now with weird pandemic stuff, I'm like, oh, let's watch something. Yeah. Oh, there's a great, and it's a trope in they've done it in some other movies. Oh, it was Hunt for Red October, right? There are scenes in it's Hunt for Red October and 13th Warrior, yeah, where you have a character who is among people who are speaking a different language, and you see like a cool way of how that character learns and adapts to that other language. And then of course we as the audience are then hearing it in English or whatever language the movie is dubbed in, so you can understand it. Yeah, no, Uberbaldi, like I said, I love the movie. It's definitely a fun movie, but there are like, if you watch it carefully, and again, in a way that's not necessarily enjoyable, but if you there are certain plot threads that just end, and you're like, wait, but what about? But that seemed interesting. What? No, okay. Yeah, there were apparently there were like lots of reshoots. They came in and did things differently. I think the director, I don't know if he was actually fired before the film was done or if he left or something. There were issues, let's say, with the production of that movie. But yeah, even with all of that, it's fun, it's cool. Some great actors, some great makeup and stuff. It is neat. Yeah, the Omar Sharif. Sorry. Yeah, so if you are interested in winning a copy of this, type in the Beowulf command. Bay, like Scott is Bay, and Wolf with WULF. So yeah, I think we'll continue with Beowulf. We'll do it. Thank you for the follow. See how that goes. And last chance, type in Beowulf to enter the giveaway. So for the next couple of weeks, we'll read Beowulf for Mythology Monday, and we'll do it for Thematic Thursday. We don't want to take 5 weeks to read this, so we'll cut it in half by doing two episodes of it a week. I think that'll be good. Hopefully people enjoy it. If you know anybody who you think they might be interested in listening to Beowulf and talking about it, let them know so they can come in and join us. No song requests, sorry. You just have to listen to me if you're here. And if that doesn't interest you, then I'm sure there are other cool things going on Twitch right now. Yeah. So today is Monday. What does that mean? That means that we've done our mythology for the day. And interestingly, mythology in the context of this story, yes, we have monsters, we have creatures, we've heard of goblins and giants specifically. We know there are sea monsters. But we are reading a Christian epic poem. So again, there will be some justifications for why there are monsters in a Christian world. Mostly. Today is also Dune reading going on over at Jessica's channel. That'll be tonight at 5 p.m. Pacific at Jessica Nerdy. So join us for that. That should be fun. And yeah, like I said, the rest of this week will be non-vampire monsters. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what other kind of monsters. There are some pretty crazy monsters in Beowulf. I should mention if you have not read or heard this story before. Yeah, Hellraiser last night was great. Unfortunately, we had some tech issues, which is always not fun and is a little bit of a bummer. But Demon Blight has won the giveaway. Awesome. Congratulations, Demon Blight. You will be getting a copy of my book. Signed, sent directly to you. Yeah. And yeah, like I said, expect to see lots more stuff with my book on social media as we continue to promote it and hopefully get some more sales and reviews. If you have a copy or read a copy, if you have a moment, drop some reviews in all the usual places, Amazon, Goodreads, wherever you can. I would very much appreciate that. But yeah. Now we just got to get Jessica ready for Human Centipede. It's coming. Pete will tell you where to drop that information. Thank you so much. Cool. Yeah, Human Centipede is coming. If you watched last night, you know I do own a copy of Human Centipede, the unrated, extended cut, whatever. I love it that the cover of it says it is 100% medically accurate. So yes, at some point they got a doctor to sign off, or somebody in the medical profession to sign off on it. Yeah, I've only seen Human Centipede 1 and 2. I haven't seen the third one still. I gotta watch the third one. It's an experience. You got, going through life, you got to have experiences. You have to open yourself to the world and art and culture and different things. And Human Centipede, it's art, it's culture. It's camp. It's gross, but there are definitely fun things about the Human Centipede movies. You'll see. If you haven't watched it, you'll see. Yeah, the third one seems super fun, but I haven't watched it yet. Hey, who are you? Who am I to judge what is art, right? Art takes infinite number of forms. It'll be great. I can't wait. I can't wait for Jessica to watch it. I don't know how that's gonna go. Let's see. Yeah, so like I said, all the normal things. Dune reading with Jessica today, and then on Friday, Wednesday, Pete and I will be embarking on a new video game on Myths and Video Games. I'm very excited about that. Looking at some Egyptian stuff, right? Egyptian. Yes. Deadly Premonition. What is that? What is Deadly Premonition? I am unfamiliar with Deadly Premonition. Oh, it's a video game? That's probably why I don't know it. Okay, I'll have to look it up. See what it's all about. But yes, art can take many forms. And look, if you're not into it, that's fine. I like watching weird stuff, gross things. Most of that doesn't bother me. I was talking last night though with the Hellraiser stuff. I don't like eyeball trauma in movies. That's one thing I can't really watch. I mean, I'll watch it, but I don't like it. I don't love it. There's a very specific eyeball thing in one of the Final Destination movies. I think it's Final Destination 5. I get the later ones mixed up because they all, I mean, most of those movies just blend together very well. But yeah, don't like that. There's a really great movie called May. I don't know if any of you have watched it, but there's an eyeball thing in that movie too. It's like, I don't like that. How many? Aren't there like 7 Final Destination movies? There are a lot. Final Destination movies. How many are there? Those movies are just so ridiculous. Especially, like I said, especially the later ones. Oh, I guess there are only 5. But they're working on a 6th? They're working on 6 and 7? What? Oh, so who knows? There might be. But I guess there are 5. I thought there were more, actually. Oh, well. 5. Oh, yeah. The newer Evil Dead movie, The Mirror Glass. That was a good one. I like that movie. The Evil Dead reboot. Different kind of style a little bit than the originals, but definitely worth watching. It makes the people watch those Final Destination movies. I have seen them all. I don't think I ever saw any of them in the theaters, but they're goofy. That number 5, it's just it's bad comedy in the sense of like it's just so ridiculous and silly. Figure, you're talking about Evil Dead, the new one. You didn't like it as much. There was definitely still camp in it, but yeah, it was overall it was a more serious tone. And there was a cool, different kind of look at that world. But yeah, I mean, you can't take that stuff too seriously when you're dealing with, goofy ritual incantations and your own yourself turning evil and dark and all that stuff. There has to be some element of humor and camp in there, or else it's just going to be ridiculous. What else? Is there anything else happening this week that I should talk about at this point? I don't think so. Yeah, Evil Dead 1 is great. It's such a classic. I've seen that a bunch of times in like really weird places too. I've seen it in theaters a couple times, not originally, but in film festivals and stuff. A couple times with Bruce Campbell in attendance. So yeah. All right. Well, I like I said, I like Beowulf. I hope you all enjoy it. Just listening is fine. See if we get more people to tune in. Oh, that's right. Yeah. When Andy was on, that's cool. That is cool. So yeah, like I said, if you know anybody who might be interested in listening to Beowulf, have them come in. Let them know. Okay, let me see. Oh, right, that was when Bruce got banned from Twitch, right? Let's see. No, it's all good. I know, and sometimes we get a whole bunch of people in here listening, and sometimes we don't. It is no problem. And of course, like I said, lurkers are more than welcome. We love our lurkers. Why